Welcome to Saturday Night of the Movies. I'm your host, Glenn Holland. Saturday's movie is The 39 Steps at 8 p.m. on WQLN PBS. It was directed by Alfred Hitchcock from a screenplay by Charles Bennett and Ian Hay, adapted from the 1915 novel of the same title by John Buchan. The 39 Steps stars Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll, with support from Lucy Mannheim, Godfrey Terrell, Peggy Ashcroft, John Laurie, and Wiley Watson. A young man from Canada, Richard Hannay, is attending a performance at a London music hall one evening. The pit orchestra strikes up a distinctive tune to introduce the next act, a man called Mr. Memory, who has memorized and can repeat on command countless facts and figures from nearly every realm of human knowledge. As he takes questions from the audience, Hannay asks him the distance between Winnipeg and Montreal. A fight breaks out among a group of hecklers, and gunshots are heard. The crowd rushes out of the theater in a panic, and an apparently frightened young woman latches on to Hannay and persuades him to take her up to his flat. Once there, she keeps him from turning on the lights until she has pulled all the shades and made sure they are alone. She tells Hannay she is a counter-spy who goes by the name Annabella Smith. She confesses that she was the one who had fired the shots to cause confusion and allow her to escape two assassins who are now standing on the street outside the apartment. She has learned of a plot to steal a vital British military secret and smuggle it out of the country within a few days, involving a man who is missing the top joint of one finger and something called the 39 Steps. Hannay is skeptical at first, but when he sees the two men loitering on the street below, he allows her to stay in his flat. Later that night, Annabella bursts into the room where he's sleeping and warns him to flee, then dies, a knife stuck in her back. Hannay finds a map of the Scottish Highlands clutched in her hand, with a circle drawn around the name of a small village. He sneaks out of the flat wearing the borrowed uniform of a milkman to elude the assassins, and later boards the Flying Scotsman for Scotland. But when the train arrives at Edinburgh, he learns through another passenger's newspaper that he is the target of a nationwide manhunt for the murderer of Annabella Smith. When he sees a group of police searching the train, he enters a compartment and engages in an extended kiss with its only occupant, an attractive young woman named Pamela. The searchers look in briefly, bemused, and then leave. But once free from his embrace, Pamela alerts the police and Hannay is forced to flee. One policeman pulls the emergency brake, bringing the train to a sudden stop on the Forth Bridge and allowing Hannay to escape the train through a window. But he still must somehow stop the spies and clear his name of murder. John Buchan was a Scottish novelist and politician who in his later years served as the 15th Governor-General of Canada under 3 different British kings. He was the son of a minister of the Free Church of Scotland, born in Perth in central Scotland in 1875. He studied classics at Oxford, where he also won several literary prizes and published a book of short stories and 3 adventure novels. During the First World War, he served as a war correspondent and began writing a history of the conflict that eventually ran to 24 volumes. In 1915, he published what would become his most famous novel, The 39 Steps, a spy thriller set just before the onset of the war. Its hero, Richard Hannay, would reappear as a major character in 4 more novels and make an appearance in other of Buchan's novels and short stories as well. Among Buchan's many young male fans was Alfred Hitchcock, who read his novels growing up. Another devotee was the creator of James Bond, Ian Fleming, who was just 7 when The 39 Steps was first published. He later said of the novel's hero, Richard Hannay, "Without him, there is no Bond." After completing his film The 39 Steps, Alfred Hitchcock arranged a private screening for John Buchan, author of the novel on which the film was based. Partway through the movie, Hitchcock asked Buchan what he thought of it so far. Buchan replied, "Fascinating. I wonder how it will end." In fact, despite his love for the original novel, Hitchcock's movie had very little in common with it. As Brian Caddy noted in a 2004 essay for Turner Classic Movies, by the time Hitchcock and his scriptwriter Charles Bennett were through, the only details remaining from the novel were the chase from London to Scotland and back, and the idea that the hero was pursued by the police while he chased the spies. But Hitchcock and Bennett did follow Buchan's lead in another respect. Buchan had given his novel's chapters titles like The Adventure of the Literary Innkeeper, The Adventure of the Radical Candidate, and The Adventure of the Spectacled Roadman, recalling the titles of Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes stories. Hitchcock said years later in a conversation with fellow director François Truffaut, "I saw it as a film of episodes, and this time I was on my toes. As soon as we were through with one episode, I remember saying, 'Here we need a good short story.' I made sure the content of every scene was very solid so that each one would be a little film in itself." But the screenplay also introduced a major new element into Buchan's story. Two female primary characters, one, Annabella Smith, to get Richard Hannay into his deadly situation, and the other, Pamela, to get him out. Michael Sravgro wrote in a 2012 retrospective for The New Yorker, "In the 39 Steps, Hitchcock's most original invention is erotic. On The Flying Scotsman, Hannay startles a bespectacled blonde in a train compartment, forcing a kiss on her to fool the cops of the train's corridor. Hannay expects her to believe in his innocence, but he bets wrong. And in Hitchcock's masterstroke, Hannay ends up handcuffed to this doubting, icy blonde and dependent on her for his freedom. The cuffs force them to get to know each other and test their mettle." Hitchcock prepared Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll for these scenes in a characteristically puckish way. Brian Caddy reports, "Locking handcuffs around their wrists, Hitchcock led the actors through a rehearsal, then claimed an urgent technical matter was calling him away. Unfortunately, he had mislaid the key. Donat and Carroll were left locked together until that afternoon. By then, of course, both actors were tired and cranky, but much better prepared for their roles." The 39 Steps was one of the most popular films of 1935 in both Great Britain and the United States. A review in the Monthly Film Bulletin said, "Like all melodramas in which the hero must win, the story contains a number of very lucky accidents. But Hitchcock's direction, the speed at which the film moves, and Donat's high-spirited acting get away with them, and the suspense never slackens." The 39 Steps is now considered one of the greatest British films ever made. Orson Welles counted it as one of his favorite Hitchcock films, saying, "Oh my God, what a masterpiece." Robert Towne, who wrote the screenplay for the 1974 neo-noir Chinatown, declared, "It's not much of an exaggeration to say that all contemporary escapist entertainment begins with the 39 Steps." It is certainly true that it also inspired the shape of some of Hitchcock's later films. The idea of an innocent man on the run had already appeared in his 1927 silent film The Lodger, and it would reappear in 1942's Saboteur with Priscilla Lane and Robert Cummings, and most notably in 1959's North by Northwest with Cary Grant and Eva Marie Saint. Madeleine Carroll was also the first of the so-called Hitchcock blondes, the icy, beautiful women who appeared repeatedly in his later films. Moreover, as critic David Cairns noted in a 2012 essay for the Criterion Collection, the 39 Steps is the film where Hitchcock really hit his stride. It takes the idea of an innocent man unjustly accused and extends it across the whole story, giving Hitchcock a formula he would return to obsessively. It refines the blend of humor and thrills he'd been toying with in earlier films and adds romance to the mix. For the first time in his career, everything works. Please join us again next time for another Saturday Night at the Movies. I'm Glenn Holland. Good night.